And now, back to Lee Elci on 94.9 News Now.
All right, welcome back. It's 39 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. State Rep Greg Howard is hanging out with us, and we appreciate that very, very much. On the phone with us right now, first time we've gotten a chance to talk to this gentleman, former State Representative Jack Hennessy. Jack, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Lee. I'm fine.
I appreciate you coming on, and again, a lot of information for us to try to cover here, and I just wanted to sort of start with you telling everybody a little bit about you and why sort of we're talking today, and then we can get into some specifics.
Okay. Well, thank you for this opportunity to, spread the word of what's happening in Bridgeport, because the media really is not really covering it that well. But I'm not originally from Bridgeport. I'm from Norwalk. And when I came to the north end of Bridgeport and started paying property taxes and paying attention to what's going on in Bridgeport, I was appalled at the fact that there was never anyone running against the endorsed Democratic candidates. I'd come to vote, and there was really no one to vote for so many years, recognizing that all the candidates worked for the city, worked for the mayor, and that it was a closed system. So I started running in local elections for city council and town committee for a number of years, and started making headway just by knocking on doors in the North End, people getting to know me. And then, in 2024, the incumbent announced her retirement, so it was an open seat. I had been campaigning in the district for years for local elections, and I recognized this was my opportunity to run against the endorsed candidate.
You meant 2004, right? Just so people.
Yes, 2004.
Yeah, okay. You had said 24. You said 2024. I just wanted to make sure people could follow the timeline.
Oh, thank you.
That's all right. Yeah.
That's a teaser. He's coming back.
He's coming back. It's a Freudian slip.
Yeah, so they challenged me. I won my re-election, and they never came after me since 2006. 2006, they assumed that they'd just knock me out, and they didn't. And they never came after me again until 2018. During that time, I was chair of the Veterans Committee for many terms, and I was a deputy speaker for Joe Asimowitz. And so, I was kind of through the whole entire experience. And, what happened was I ran afoul of the Speaker of the House, Matt Ritter, over this vaccine religious exemption bill that he wanted to get rid of religious exemption for families, vaccine exemption. And since I was the only Democrat that basically was fighting this tooth and nail, because I understood that this was such an important right for parents to have choices over their children's health care, I was gerrymandered just about, my entire neighborhood was moved into Fairfield, and my opponent was moved into the district. And the outcome was going back and forth. It was so close. First, Marcus is winning. Then there was statutory recount, and then I'm winning. Marcus brings it to court. Then he's winning by 2 votes. And I bring to court 4 people that said that Marcus Brown told him that anyone can sign absentee ballot applications. Well, the judge found that to be, against the law, and called out canceled the primary, called for a new one. And I think the only reason why you and I are having this conversation is, we're just having deja vu all over again with John Gomes' primary getting thrown out because of absentee ballot fraud. Only this time we proved that the absentee ballots that were harvested it was over 1,000. There was 1,300 absentee ballots that we proved in court. And the judge threw it out, which is why we're having this February 27th general election. And, my whole point is we need to win this general election.
Before I let Greg ask you a couple of specifics, I just want to get your general theme. Can't we all be on the same page? Maybe this is a stupid thought, but maybe can't we all be on the same plane and want fair and free elections? It seems like in Bridgeport it's been nefarious for as long as I can remember, and it's almost like it's the cost of doing business, Jack. You just got to realize that in Bridgeport there's going to be cheating. Well, to me that's unacceptable. Why do we let this why do you let this happen?
Well, in the 1990s when I first started running, I called it the Bridgeport handicap, in which anyone who would be running against the endorsed candidate would necessarily have at least 10 or 20% on the machines to overcome the absentee ballot fraud. The dead people voting in Bridgeport, it's always been a joke, and it continued to be a joke until the videos came out, and then they can't, the governor and all state elected officials, they didn't come out. The day after the videos were released of Wanda Jeter stuffing absentee ballots, I called all these people. I work with them in the legislature and asked them, what are you going to do about Bridgeport? And, since the videos have come out, not a word from any of our elected officials or congressionals who have benefited from this same nefarious absentee ballot harvesting.
So
the silence is deafening, and we have them caught red-handed. And unfortunately, the Connecticut Post hasn't really been covering it. The Connecticut Mirror is one forum that has been covering this issue with balance. And I suggest that your readers check out the Connecticut Mirror to read about this in more detail, because unfortunately this is just, they're just trying to get this through. Joe Ganim, their man, and John Gomes is not, and that's the end of the story. Just like I wasn't their man.
And I think Jack, what you're talking about gets to the root of something we've talked about before, Lee, where it's just, I talked about, how to get into the game and whatnot, and, the barriers to entry, I think, is the term that I used previously. There are several districts in this state that you could run a non-existent person. You could put, Kermit the Frog on the ballot, and if they're on the Democrat line, they would win. And there's Republican districts like that too. It's not you know what I mean? There's both. There are super strong districts where it's just how it goes. And the biggest problem in those districts is that you have this small group of people literally picking the candidate. So if you're not playing nice with your party, then you don't get picked and you don't get the spot. That's just how it is, because it's really not about winning the election. It's about getting your name on that line, because whoever's on that line, quote unquote, automatically wins.
Right.
And that's the root of the problem. And you have these groups of people, whether they're town committees or candidate committees or whatever, as the case may be, they're literally picking the person for you.
Right.
See, my district right now went plus 11 for Joe Biden in 2020. You look at the 2022 election, it was, the governor on down, they won by plus 5, plus 6 on average, something like that. The Democrats did. And I obviously won as a Republican. So I don't feel that sort of pressure because my district is what we call it a purple district, right? Where it's, kind of go either way. But, some of these people that are in these deep blue districts, if they don't play nice with the Democrat machine, they're off. Right. And it doesn't matter what the people want. And it's because, but you got to put responsibility on the people too, because if, we'll stay in Bridgeport, stay Steve Stafstrom, right? Jack. So let's say tomorrow, Steve decided not to play nice with the Democrats and they didn't give him the line. you would think that Steve Stafford changing nothing but just simply running as working families like Jack did, or as a Republican or any other the other parties, would get the same amount of votes that he did, whether he's on a Democrat line or not, because he is still Steve Stafford. But that's just not the case,
right?
Because people vote party line. Jack, you may not know this, but I've talked about this on the air before, right? So I had a gentleman that I met last year. Now, I ran in 2020. I was on the ballot, and I was on the ballot in 2022, and he voted both times. And he didn't even know as a police officer that was my full-time job. So this is a person who, and he's a nice guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to criticize him, because he is representative of, I think, a majority of voters, unfortunately, where he just goes and he votes straight down one line or the other and doesn't research the individual candidates. When I show up to a voting booth, I could tell you the positions, or at least the positions that matter to me most, of every single candidate on that ballot. And I had a woman in 2021, right? Because, Jack, we run an even year, state reps, right? 2021, right. I'm holding signs out for a buddy of mine who was running for Board of Ed in my hometown. And a woman goes into the voting booth, goes, I assume she voted, comes out and says to me, "Thanks for running again." I'm like, "What? My name's not even on the ballot. Yeah. Did you write me in for something? For goodness sakes, I got enough to do." But right. It's like, they're just, and I think that's representative, unfortunately, of too much of the electorate. And when people talk about term limits, I say all the time, we have term limits. The electorate could enact term limits anytime they want. So if you think Nancy Pelosi's been in office too long, don't vote for her if you live in her district.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like though, and Jack, I'll give you a chance to close it out here, but I feel like it all could be solved with more punitive actions on voter fraud. It seems like we just don't care, right? So this woman is on film and nobody cares. Right,
and she's on paid leave. Bridgeport property taxpayers have paid over $40,000 to Wanda Jeter, and she continues to harvest absentee ballots. The only difference between the primary last year and now is that instead of using the drop boxes to dump the harvested absentee ballots, they put a stamp on it and put it in the mailbox where there's no cameras. But the same nefarious operation going. And I just want to tell your listeners that Democrats are terrified throughout the state that they might lose Bridgeport. And if Joe Ganim wins, you can be assured that you're not going to get the governorship or congressional, because this machine works for them. And we have direct links to this Park City Consulting LLC, in which Ned Lamont and Joe Ganim, all the endorsed candidates, they all pay into this Park City Limited LLC, which is run by two of the top Ganim officials, Tom Gaudette and Constance Vickers, who are officials. They make over $100,000 a year for the city, and then they run this LLC that, prior to it being created in 2022, they made checks out directly to Wanda Jeter. So this operation is in full swing, and it's unencumbered by really any kind of scrutiny. And I'm calling out to the rest of the state, if you want to have free elections, fair elections, you need to help us to get rid of Joe Ganim. That is the key, because Mario Testa and Joe Ganim have control on this absentee ballot harvesting. It's going on now, even though we have video, even though we had a court winning the court case, just like I won it last year. But then we get crushed in, the general as all the Democrats in the state come in to uphold their endorsed candidates. So I'm asking everyone to please come to Bridgeport, volunteer, donate to John Gomes, and help us not just clean up Bridgeport, because this isn't just a Bridgeport-centric thing. This is a statewide thing. This is a state operation that affects everyone in the state. And it's one of the reasons why we're so locked down. and we're not really moving anything in the legislature. We have all our elected officials coming from Greenwich. Now, that they don't represent Bridgeport and the people of Bridgeport. And we'd like to have people in office that actually do represent us. And this is our opportunity.
I'd like to say, Lee, just very quickly for everybody listening, you know, Jack Hennessy served 9 terms, right, Jack? 9 terms, am I right?
Yeah.
18 years in the state legislature, 18 years as a Democrat, was a deputy speaker. This is not a person who is just upset that the election didn't go his way. This is a person who knows the inside of what goes on in politics in Bridgeport. He understands the inside of what goes on in the Democratic Party and politics in the state of Connecticut. So I just want to make sure that folks understand that that's the pedigree that he comes with here. And I will say in the one term that we served together, and I say this about a lot of my Democrat colleagues, you know, of course my Republican ones too, but I always appreciate it when you can find somebody in that building that stands on their own convictions with honesty. You know, sometimes even when we disagree, I have great respect for, you know, Jack, I always use Robin Porter as an example, right? Because Robin and I probably disagree on just about every single policy that comes forward. We just come from very different places. But even though I disagree with her, everything that Robin says she believes, everything that Robin stands up and talks on or fights for is something that she stands on her own convictions. And I don't know if you share my opinion of her, but
absolutely.
I hold her in high regard with the greatest amount of respect. Because,
and of course she's no longer chair of labor.
Right. I mean, she's wrong. Back. She's wrong a lot, but she believes in what she's saying, and it's you know, I'm being a little facetious because I tell that I say it right to her face. I said, hey, I appreciate your conviction. I respect your honesty. You're wrong, and she chuckles and whatnot. Right. But because we do disagree, just because of you know, we're just different people and where we come from. But you know, I say
Absolutely.
that it is tough to find folks like that. So certainly was a pleasure serving with you for 2 years, sir.
Thank you. Likewise.
Jack, thank you very much. I'm out of time. I wish we could talk a little bit more, but down the road, let us know if something else going on. You got it. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Jack Hennessy, former state rep. Greg Howard, thank you, buddy. Appreciate you hanging out with us. We'll come back. Mike Pacetto is right around the corner. We'll chat with that entrepreneur, Stephen Bucci from the Heritage Foundation, around the corner as well. Phone calls in the 9 o'clock hour. All that coming up. Hang on.